I think, you know what, I think it may have been that period when I was in news radio, and there was a time there when, because of management changes, the environment got a little strange.
And then I loved, and I cared enough to buy the CD, so I had the CD.
Yeah.
I used a few things. Beatles Revolution was one of our sign-on songs. I'm going to leave my stuff here for a moment. I'll go refile the vinyl, and then I'll come back. I keep forgetting there's no wheels on this chair.
We're here with Edd Fong and Jeff Hughson of KZAP. The return of KZAP, November 8th, 2012. Tell us about it, Jeff. How did this come together?
Well, it actually, we had our 44th anniversary coming up today, is our 44th birthday, and the idea originated with the KDVS alumni group, and they got together and everyone wanted to do, yeah, let's do a KZAP reunion, and they took that to KDVS management, and they, amazingly, they're college students, but they knew who we were and respected what we had done. So they said, yeah, let's go. And then they contacted me, and I took on the task of finding all the jocks that will be appearing during this 48-hour period. And everyone thought, this is a great idea, this will be fun, let's do it. And we're doing it.
So you have different jocks that represent different eras of KZAP, right?
We focused on 60s and 70s.
Okay.
KZAP went until 92, but we focused on 60s and 70s. That was the focus they wanted. More towards the pure freeform at the beginning, and sort of a somewhat diluted freeform by the early and middle 70s. But we wanted to go freeform. KDVS has designated themselves a freeform radio station for over 20 years.
They're keeping the KZAP tradition alive. And there were some KZAP people that went through here, huh?
Yes, I would say probably 5 or 6 guys who attended school here and then went on to work at KZAP. Bruce Reardon, Keith Stark, and a couple of other people whose names I don't recall.
Yours truly.
Oh, Ed.
Ed, you were there in the mid-70s?
Yes, I started, yes, I was at KZAP in the mid-70s. I was going to school here in the early 70s, and this is where I got my radio start here at KDVS. And then after I graduated, well, actually I applied for a job at KZAP before I even graduated, and no response for over a year. And then I was still hanging out here in Davis doing radio shows occasionally, had a part-time job. And all of a sudden a call comes out of the blue, said, hey, we have a slot open, are you still interested? Sure, I'm interested. So that's how I got into the KZAP family. And as Jeff said, you know, from the 60s, I mean, I was a KZAP listener, of course, in the late 60s and early 70s. And yes, it did go through a bit of a transition period from the pure freeform and super eclectic mix of music in the late 60s and very early 70s to gradually a little bit more structure, but it was still, there was still quite a bit of freedom for the jocks, you know, to play what they wanted. But there were certain things that, of course, they wanted you to emphasize to try to gain a little familiarity. I guess you could call it maybe you know just a slightly more commercial sound, because at that point there was beginning to be competition on the FM airwaves.
That was Earth Radio.
Right. And the feeling was, boy, you know, if you didn't tighten up your format just a little bit and play some of the the bands and the groups, the acts that were popular at the time, that you're going to miss out on a decent sized audience. And of course, radio is it's all commercial radio is all based on ratings and listenership, so you have to have a decent listenership in order for the station to make money. But it was still a pretty I think a pretty decent radio station in the early to mid 70s, and of course things gradually, steadily changed.
It's almost the same exact story as the movie FM. the movie FM kind of takes you through that whole history of freeform jocks, culminating in commercialism taking over.
It's sort of the American story, isn't it? Always.